I discovered years ago that with entertainers, those persons who are so musical and they are so talented, they don't have to have all of the big show stuff around them. That if they can just stand in the middle of a room and just sing, even a cappella, that it indeed is a very talented person. And Kevin, you are indeed a very talented person. Thank you so much. Your voice is just so melodic, and I believe that you would agree with me that when Kevin sings, he opens his soul in such a way that it just takes us all to this wonderful place in the presence of God. I think God sings through Kevin. Hear now this wonderful gospel lesson about a man who was blind and who receives his sight. They came to Jericho as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me!" Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me!" Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing off his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and he came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," Jesus said. Your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. It seems to me that ultimately we all want to see. We all want to see. And many of us want to see the past, and we want to see the present, and we want to see the future. We would love all that future-seeing stuff because then we don't have to be so scared as we approach the future. But what I've also found, too, is that people who look into the past too much and people who look into the future too much miss all the wonderful things to see in the present moment in time. So Jesus is the one who helps us to see right here and right now. And whenever we can see right here and right now, we can look at our past differently. And when we can see right here and right now with the eyes that God has given us, our spiritual eyes, we can look into the future and not have to be afraid. Ultimately, we all want to see. And this is the story of blind Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. I used to get called Bartimaeus growing up, people thinking that I was named after this fellow, or Bartholomew, but Bar, B-A-R in Hebrew means son, son of, and so it's Bartimaeus. He hears Jesus is coming down the street. And he knows there's something about this Jesus. He's heard it, he's felt it, that can change his life. He knows in order for him to see, he must approach Jesus. Now, here's the thing. I believe this. If you truly want to see, I'm not talking about just, eyes that can see things, but with spiritual eyes can see who you really are and what you're really all about and what's most important in the world around us, you have to know who Jesus is. You have to. I believe that. By my knowing Jesus, I can see better today than I ever have in my whole life. And the way that we find out who Jesus is by doing what? Read. Or read what? There you go. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You can read the Old Testament, and then it can help you maybe have some background on Jesus. You can read the epistles and the letters of Paul and so forth, and it might enlighten you, but know who Jesus is, what he said, because it is Jesus who is going to help you to see. And even though you don't know exactly who Jesus is, and you might not know it in every detail and may not know fully, if you just know something about Jesus, you can receive the miracle of sight. And that's what happens in this story. Bartimaeus calls out, "Jesus, Son of David." He knew that there was something special about Jesus. He also knew the title for the messianic figure who was going to come and save Israel. That's what that title is, Jesus, Son of David. During this time in history, there was a great expectation that a messianic figure would come among them and then liberate them from the oppressors who occupied their land. And this Messiah was going to be a David-like figure who would be strong and mighty, who could lead an incredible military, and who would restore Israel to their former glory back when David was king. Jesus, Son of David, he knew that this was a messianic title. But as we know, as we read the story of Jesus, this is not what he came to do. He did not come to set us free from the oppressors who occupy our land. He came to set us free from those oppressive thoughts and feelings and experiences and wounds that keep us blind to the greater glory of God and ourselves. Jesus, Son of David. And Jesus called him to come forth. Now, this is another part of the story that I think is very interesting. It says he threw his cloak off and he went toward Jesus. A cloak during the first century is a garment that was used for many things. If you were out at night, you wrapped it around yourself to keep you warm. It was a garment to cover you up, to keep you protected. And if you want to experience the miracle of sight, spiritual seeing, you have to be willing to take your cloak off and go to Jesus vulnerable. Think about it. What are all the things that you like to cover yourself up with to keep you safe? And those very things that you try to cover yourself up to protect you are the things that keep you blind. When we come to God for the miracle of sight, if we really want to experience it fully, I suggest to you, do like Bartimaeus and throw off everything that's keeping you blind and go stand before Jesus vulnerable as you can, because that's where the transformation begins. The next thing in the story is, as Bartimaeus is shouting, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me," what did the crowd do? What did the righteous and the religious do to the blind man? "Shh, be quiet. You're making a fool of yourself. You know how stupid you are. Be quiet. We can't hear what's going on." But did Bartimaeus listen? No. Because he was determined he was going to get the miracle. If you want the miracle of seeing and the miracle of sight, you cannot let anything stop you. And I promise you that the people that I've experienced in my life who've tried to keep me blind have been the most righteous and the most religious. Righteous and religious people will try to keep you down because they need you to stay in line to control you. But sometimes, as we're coming for a miracle of sight, we have to let go of that which we cover ourselves up with, and we have to even be willing to rise above and transcend above the voices that would have us stay down. You can tell the Baptist in the house. He didn't even have a name in the story. It wasn't Fred Bartimaeus. It wasn't Yeshua Bartimaeus. It wasn't Matthew. It was just son of somebody else. And that's what happens sometimes when we become invisible in society. We no longer have a name. My father grew up extremely poor. His father was a sharecropper in Kentucky. My dad was one of 7 kids. His 3 older brothers did not finish high school. They quit school in 8th grade. Not necessarily because they wanted to, but there was an expectation. Once you could read, once you could write, and once you could do basic mathematics, quit your job and go help the family. My father was determined to finish high school. His family gave him a horrible time and told him how selfish he was to want to do that. But he finished high school. After high school, he went into the Army. Toward the end of his not-so-glorious Army career, he was stationed in Montgomery, Alabama, where he met my mother. They got married, they lived there for a couple of years, and that's where my older sister Pam was born. Then my mom and my dad thought that they would have a better opportunity if he returned back to his hometown area, Morganfield, Kentucky. My father had graduated from high school, served in the military, and then was working and had a long history of keeping a job and paying for cars and so forth, and he went to the bank in Morganfield, Kentucky to apply for a loan. He had the ability to pay, he had the good credit rating, and when the loan officer looked at him, he said, "Are you Jesse Buchanan's son?" He says, "Well, yes, sir, I am." And this bank loan officer said, Nothing in the world can come from Jesse Buchanan that's any good. I'm going to deny your loan." He was denied the loan not because of what he could do or if he could pay it back, but just simply because who he was the son of. That was a wound that never really healed in him, but it was also something that drove him for the rest of his life to prove himself and to make that man a big fat jerk and liar. See? Sometimes we inherit an image that's projected upon us. Whether it's just, accurate or not, it's the image that's been thrown at us. I want to let you know, if you want to see, to truly see, you have to not only come to Jesus vulnerable without your protective cloak. You not only have to have an incredible desire to receive the miracle no matter what those around you are saying, but sometimes you have to let go of the names that have been placed upon you. If you want to see, then you make it the most important thing in your life, and I promise you God will open up your eyes and help you to see. And what I feel is showing on in this story, and what I also see as a theme throughout life, and even in Jesus' life, is the important thing is this: to see who you really are and then to live that life. And this is the glory of sight. When you see who you really are, you no longer have to wear the masks that we often wear to project some image on those around us, because we think if people somehow really knew us, they would not like us. That's a big fat lie. It's a big fat lie. Be who you are. Some people will absolutely adore you. Some people will hate you. And here's the harsh reality that I had to learn. Most people don't ever think about you. Seriously. You are not the center of the universe. You may be for a small group of people, but in reality, most people just want to know who you are. Saw a report on Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel on HBO, and one of the segments that they did was professional athletes coming out, who are gay, coming out why they're performing as professional athletes. Now, there have been a number of them who came out after they retired. But talking about major sports, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, those huge team sports. They interviewed several players who have come out since they played. And their lives have changed because now they can really be themselves. One defensive back who played for a couple of different teams said when he would watch the film, he was always so paranoid. He said, "Oh my God, look how I'm running on the field. I'm running like a gay man." Or when I was expressing myself with my hands after I thought was a bad call, or my hands acting gay. You see, he was paranoid every day of his life that someone would find out. But when he came out, he said, "I'm so liberated and I'm so free." And now this former football player is doing a program for other young people who are gay to teach them that it's not only okay, it's wonderful, because the suicide rate for young people is so high who feel or believe that they're homosexual. But they also interviewed another fellow. He's a boxer. You can't get much more machismo than boxer, right? I mean, it's just you and the other guy or the other woman, and this is because we have professional female boxers as well. His name is Orlando, and he's from Central Florida. And he would cry every night. Yes, a boxer, crying every night. And his mother said, "Come out. Take the risk, Orlando. Come out. Let everybody know who you are." And so he did. And they showed the boxing match a few weeks later after he came out. The stadium was packed, and when he walked into the stadium, he did not get booed, he did not get heckled, but rather the whole place stood up and cheered. You see, they celebrated that he took the risk, and he won the bout. But he is the first professional athlete to come out. Now, I share this story with you because of this. When they interviewed him afterwards, he just glowed because he could finally be his real self all the time. And the people in the gay community can teach the rest of us about the risk and the reward of letting our cloaks down and learning how to see who we really are and living our life, you see. If you want to see, Jesus can teach you to see. If you want to know who you are, God will give you the strength and the Spirit to teach you who you really are. And once we are able to see, then we become empowered to help other people to see. Does that make sense? If I'm walking around as a blind man and hiding behind masks and covering myself with a cloak, I can't help you to see who you really are because I'm living as a hypocrite, aren't I? So whenever we see and we open our eyes up and God gives us the miracle to see who we really are and to live openly that person, then that empowers us to teach other people how to do the same. And that's who we are as a congregation. We are sight givers. That's what we do. We have a place here where we encourage people to explore and to be who they really are. And you can't get much more diverse than this place right here. For those of you who are new, think, well, they just look like all normal people to me. Believe me, I've been with these people for 17 years and there's nothing normal about any of them. And thank God for that. Normal is boring. What we do is we show you that you can explore, that you can question, that you can let go of your cloak, you can take off your mask. And not only will you learn to see, but you learn it's okay and it's safe, you see. That's what we do. We're sight givers. And you see, when we receive the miracle of sight, then we can see Jesus. And as we can see Jesus, it allows us to see God. And as we can see God, it empowers us to see God and other people. And as we see God and other people, that then empowers us to be who we really are and to serve this world. We're sight givers. That's what we do. And because of this, this is why we join. This is why we attend. This is why we serve. And ultimately, it's why we love. Because we see one another for who we really are, as different as we are. And we love one another as Christ loves us. On the night of his betrayal, Bill, if you would come and assist. Jesus was meeting with his disciples. And as we do communion this morning, this is what I want you to ask you to do as you prepare yourself when you take the elements. Who's taking the elements? Is it the real me? And if it's the real me, is it the me that I show to the world around me?